This is my video update on this Saturday midday, December the 14th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the breaking news that South Korean President Yoon has been impeached. The very unpopular president was impeached by the South Korean parliament today. And this is without a doubt an Elensky moment. This is an Elensky curse, no doubt about it, because I believe, it is of my opinion, that the South Korean president, when he declared martial law, what he was trying to do was to try and find a way to get weapons to Project Ukraine. That's what he was up to when he declared martial law. Keep in mind, Yermak and a delegation from Ukraine visited President Yoon about a week before he declared martial law. And so President Yoon wanted to get weapons to Project Ukraine under pressure from the Biden White House. Notice that the Biden White House has been very quiet about everything that has unfolded in South Korea. He wanted to get those weapons to the Elensky regime. Generals in the South Korean military were involved in the martial law decision, and they wanted to get weapons to the Elensky regime, and the opposition parties, they were opposed to it. And so he came up with the bright idea of imposing martial law in order to get those weapons to the Green Goblin. And he has been Elensky cursed. He got burned. It is official. Elensky curse for President Yoon. So that is the breaking news for today. And Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, he was giving an interview to Fox News, and he was asked about Trump's plan for Project Ukraine. And Kellogg said that Trump is playing 3D chess. And if anyone can get to a ceasefire in Project Ukraine, it is President-elect Trump. And don't be surprised, Kellogg said, if Trump invites Putin and Elensky to the United States for the January 20th inauguration and then sits them down for a peace deal. Interesting. Very interesting. Can you imagine if something like that actually happens, if Trump invites Putin and Elensky to the January 20th inauguration? Putin would not go. Putin would decline. Elensky would accept. Elensky would accept the invite. Podolyak, pack your bags. We are going to America. I can do some home shopping. But Xi Jinping, from what I understand, has declined the offer to attend the January 20th inauguration that I was talking about in my video update from yesterday. And then I actually joked around about Putin being invited to the inauguration. I was just joking around, and here you have the Ukraine envoy talking about Putin and Zelensky being invited to the inauguration and then getting to a ceasefire agreement. NBC News is reporting that Trump wants a day one ceasefire in Ukraine. From his first day in office, on his first day in office, Trump wants there to be a ceasefire, and he's very serious about it, according to NBC News. Let me pull up the quote from NBC News. Trump wants day one Ukraine ceasefire. Trump is really serious about wanting to get to a ceasefire on day one, a source told NBC News. According to the outlet, Trump's national security team has already held talks with the outgoing White House and the Kiev leadership. Vice President-elect Vance and Special Envoy for Ukraine Keith Kellogg met with Elensky's Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak last week. So NBC News goes on to report that while Trump is serious about getting to a ceasefire on day one, there still are a lot of different opinions as to what a ceasefire could look like. And according to NBC's sources, Trump has not come to a conclusion as to what his plan will look like for Project Ukraine. So that is what NBC News is reporting. The Kremlin reacted to Trump's interview in Time magazine, where he was named Person of the Year, and he said that he is absolutely against long-range missile strikes into pre-2014 Russian territory. Trump said that these long-range missile strikes, all they do is escalate the conflict. And Peskov said that Trump's views are very much in agreement, in alignment with the Kremlin's views. Here's what Peskov said. The statement itself completely coincides with our position, Peskov told reporters. In this case, we have the same vision of the reasons for the escalation. He added that Trump's thinking on the matter appeals to Russia. It's obvious that Trump understands what exactly is escalating the situation around the conflict, he said. At the same time, the Russian presidential spokesman warned against jumping ahead of ourselves and predicting the actions of the incoming U.S. administration. Let's wait until the moment when the president-elect takes his post in the Oval Office, he advised. So an interesting statement from Peskov, huh? The Kremlin and the incoming Trump administration are very much aligned in their thinking on what is causing the escalation, the problems in getting to a ceasefire in Ukraine. Don't be surprised if Trump presents a plan that is very close to Putin's Istanbul Plus, the statement that he gave at the Russian Foreign Ministry in June, where Putin outlined Russia's conditions for a ceasefire. If Trump presents something like this to Putin, and Putin agrees, he agrees to a ceasefire. Now, will Elensky agree to an Istanbul plus? Maybe, possibly, if the Trump White House gives Elensky and his administration a way out of the box that they are in when it comes to Project Ukraine, personally gives Elensky and his administration a way out of Project Ukraine, a way out of the dangers they face with the Banderites, then Elensky might agree to an Istanbul plus as well. Something along these lines could happen. And if a plan that is very close to what Putin has outlined is presented to Russia, Putin just might accept. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but it's possible. It's very, very possible. So the EU is preparing for this. They are preparing for this type of scenario, and there's going to be an EU summit this coming Wednesday, and they are going to discuss a possible freeze to the conflict in Ukraine and European peacekeepers in Ukraine. And this initiative, of course, is being led by little Napoleon flip-flopper Macron. And at this meeting that is going to take place in Brussels, you will have NATO chief Mark Rutte, who wants to take away your pension and your health care and give it to the military-industrial complex. He will be at this EU meeting. From what I understand, Elensky will be there, though I'm not sure if he's going to be there in person or whether he's going to be there via video. But Elensky, Rutte, They're going to be attending this EU meeting on Wednesday. Olaf Scholz has been invited. Macron, of course. Duda from Poland will be there, as well as Ursula von der Crazy and all of the EU kleptocrats. And they're going to discuss peacekeepers in Ukraine. So something's cooking. Something is absolutely cooking. Because the EU and Macron, they are talking a lot about peacekeepers in Ukraine. They probably believe that the plan that Kellogg was publishing, that he published in April of 2024, that this is going to be the plan that Trump presents to Putin. Maybe it'll be amended to coincide with Istanbul plus plus. It'll be probably a mix of both plans. And they believe that this is going to be the ceasefire plan, and they're preparing for European troops in Ukraine. Because if that plan is agreed by Russia and by Putin, then it's very possible that you could see European forces in Ukraine as peacekeepers. But we all know what the Kellogg plan calls for. The Kellogg plan says no NATO for Ukraine for 10 to 20 years and European peacekeepers in Ukraine. And then after that 10 or 20 year time period, when Putin is no longer president of Russia, then Project Ukraine can be revisited. But we'll see how all of this shakes out. The Europeans, Macron, he believes that this is going to be the ceasefire plan that will be presented and agreed on by Putin and by Elensky. And so they're preparing their troops to go to Ukraine, because Trump has ruled out U.S. troops in Ukraine. So that's the news coming out of Brussels. In the meantime, we have a lot of information from the front lines related to Pokrovsk. I talked about this yesterday. Fighting has begun in the outskirts of Pokrovsk, and if Pokrovsk does fall to Russia, which it will eventually, then this would, along with Kursk, Pokrovsk and Kursk, the Ukraine elite forces being surrounded in Kursk and Pokrovsk falling to the Russian military, could be a knockout blow for the Elensky regime. So you're seeing a lot of rushed activity from the collective West, even from the Trump White House. They want a ceasefire on day one. Macron and the EU, they are preparing peacekeeping troops, what they call peacekeeping troops, to enter Ukraine. A lot of activity is taking place in the anticipation that something is going to happen with Project Ukraine. It really does remind me of how we got to Minsk. The Ukraine, the Poroshenko Ukraine military and the NATO mercenary forces that were fighting with the Ukraine military, surrounded by the Donbass militia and Angela Merkel flying to Moscow and begging Putin for an agreement. We're very much at that type of situation. Will Putin agree to another type of Minsk? Istanbul plus plus slash Minsk III agreement. Time will tell. Zero Hedge, reporting on Pokrovsk, says that losses for Ukraine have been stacking up in 2024, and lack of manpower has been the overreaching theme. Though numerous Western officials and think tanks, including the Institute for the Study of War, claim that Russian gains have been paid for with massive casualties, they've provided no concrete proof so far to support their stats. The Russian meat grinder narrative is beginning to sound like a coping mechanism or propaganda as it becomes clear that Russia is gaining troop strength instead of losing momentum. Yeah, I would say the North Korean soldiers in Kursk propaganda has also crumbled. Another reason which leads me to believe that the whole South Korea martial law thing was about getting weapons to Ukraine was the North Korean troop narrative, which has completely collapsed and fallen apart. Zero Hedge actually says it in this article. There has been similar propaganda surrounding mass casualties of North Korean troops in Kursk. There are still no verified reports or video footage of actual DPRK troops in combat against Ukraine. Rumors abound, like the ghost of Kiev. What we do know is that Ukraine is desperate for new soldiers to refresh their defensive lines. NATO leaders and the Biden White House have been putting pressure on Elensky to draft men from the 18 to 25 age bracket, a move Elensky has avoided to prevent the complete collapse of a generation. The average age of conscripts is now well over 40 years old. And then Zero Hedge talks about Russia's military method to taking cities like Pokrovsk. Zero Hedge says that Russia's typical methodology for dealing with urban centers has been to surround and then bombard with artillery and FABs until the majority of buildings and defenses are rubble. A renowned Ukraine military officer, Serhiy Filimonov, commander of the Da Vinci Wolves Battalion of the 59th Motorized Brigade, described Pokrovsk defense as a disaster. Senior officers are placing unrealistic demand on units and are unfamiliar with circumstances on the front line, Filimonov wrote on his Telegram channel this week. I don't know, man. I've got a feeling that the Biden White House, the Trump White House, the globalists, the deep state, the EU globalists, the EU political elite and kleptocrats, they know that Ukraine is about to crumble. They know that elite forces are surrounded or about to be surrounded in Kursk. They know that Pokrovsk, the major supply hub, is going to be captured by Russia, and they're scrambling to put together some sort of a Minsk III. That's just my sense of things. And they believe that Putin will agree to it. And he might. I mean, I don't want to say he's not going to agree to it, but he might. So that's the news there. What else do we have going on? Let's talk about Georgia. We'll talk about Georgia. We'll talk about Blinken in Turkey, and then we'll get to a clown world. So today, December the 14th, the Georgian parliament will vote for a new president, Salome Zurabichvili. She is done, and a new president will be voted in. Most likely it will be, I forgot his name, but it will be the former Manchester City footballer. God, I forgot his name. But I think he's in the front running to be Georgia's new president. And from what I understand, what I've read about him is that he is anti-EU and anti-NATO. He's very much Georgia first and very much against EU and NATO. And Salome Zurabichvili, she has actually posted on X. Check this out. She posted on X that she's not going anywhere. After today's vote for a new president, Salome Zurabichvili said, "I am not going anywhere." This is what she posted on X. "I'm here and will remain because at this crucial time, the country needs legitimate institutions and reps truly elected by the people. When those relying on repression realize that elections are the only way forward, I'll be ready to organize them for peace, justice, and a European future." She doesn't want to leave, man. She refuses to go. Salome Zurabichvili is like she's very much the friend or relative that comes to visit you and they just don't leave, right? They don't leave your home. They come to stay for a couple of days, and the days turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, and they don't leave. and you're saying to yourself, man, how do I get rid of this person? He refuses to leave. That's what Zurabichvili, that's what she reminds me of. She refuses to step down. And you know there's going to be big riots today. This is probably the last day of big riots and protests to try and regime change the Georgia Dream government. This is going to be the EU globalists' last stand in trying to get a successful regime change. Because after today, we have a new president, and Zurabichvili is going to have to go, whether she likes it or not. They're going to have to pick her up by her chair and move her out of office. Take her chair with her sitting on it and just move it out onto the street corner or something. Unbelievable, huh? I refuse to go, she says. I refuse to go. I'm just not going to leave. And then she talks about democracy. She refuses to go, and she talks about rule of law and democracy and stuff like that. Incredible. So that's the news out of Georgia. Expect a very difficult, violent night of protesters. Let's see if Georgia can pull through. I believe they will. I'm confident that Georgia Dream is on top of this. And even though tonight's going to be a difficult night, I believe they'll get through it and they'll have a new president. The official date where Zurabichvili is gone. I mean, today she gets voted out, but she has to leave by December 20th. So I guess you have a couple of weeks of transition. So that is the news coming out of Georgia. And Blinken was in Turkey yesterday. He's on a tour of the Middle East. And he met with the Turkish foreign minister, and the statement from Blinken discussing Syria, discussing Gaza, his statement was that the United States and Turkey, they reached a broad agreement on these issues. Specifically on Syria, they reached a broad agreement. The US-backed Kurds now fighting against the Turkish forces in Syria. And a broad agreement, to me, signals that they didn't agree on anything, really. As I was saying in a video I recorded a couple of days ago, Turkey's going to look at Blinken, who's been a 4-year failure as Secretary of State. He's on the way out, and Turkish officials are not going to take anything that he says seriously. Diplomatic speak, broad agreement means they achieved nothing. He achieved nothing, which pretty much sums up Blinken's 4 years as Secretary of State. So Turkey's going to try to remove the Kurds, the US-backed Kurds. This is going to be a big problem for Turkey and the United States. The U.S. wants to keep the Kurds in there. Erdogan wants to get the Kurds out. So another reason why Blinken went to Turkey to meet with the foreign minister, rumor has it that he's actually speaking with Turkey to figure out a way to get the weapons that are in Syria, that Turkey has under its control, to Project Ukraine, which I also imagine Erdogan has said no. Not that those weapons would make any difference, but the Biden White House is desperate to keep the Elensky regime afloat, at least until January 20th. So they're looking for weapons wherever they can find them. And so you have a bunch of weapons in Syria, and Blinken goes to Ankara to meet with Turkish officials so that he can find a way to purchase those weapons or get those weapons to the Elensky regime. So that's another reason for the visit from Blinken. By the way, Russia is in talks with HTS, from what I understand, to keep the bases in Syria, at least for the time being. And this actually makes sense. If you're Erdogan and you've just betrayed Putin, you've just one-upped Putin, do you tell Putin to remove his bases? No. Nope. You allow Russia to keep their bases in Syria. You've just one-upped Putin, right? You're Erdogan. So you've one-upped Putin there. You've gotten your victory over Russia. At least this is what you think if you're Erdogan. So in order to keep good relations with Russia, you don't kick Russia out of the air bases, out of the two bases that they have in Syria. You keep them there, and you also have the bases as leverage over the United States, because the U.S. is going to definitely want those bases gone. And if you're Erdogan, you have some nice leverage there, and you tell the U.S., well, what are you going to give me to get those bases to go? So it's actually a very smart move from Erdogan to keep those bases in Syria for the time being. If you're Russia, what do? You go along with this and you keep those bases for 6 months, for a year, however long you can keep them, but you always have your plan to understand that eventually you're going to have to go. So you start working on other plans and other ways to have a presence in the region, to work with other countries or use the bases or the ports of other countries, maybe Egypt, which is a BRICS member or something like that. So that's the update there. And let's do a clown world, and we can wrap this video up. And in this clown world, we have news that Giorgia Meloni has granted Italian citizenship to Milei. Milei actually has Italian ancestry, and so he has the right to actually get Italian citizenship if he goes through the process. But Meloni just said, here you go, Milei, we're just going to give you citizenship. And this is upsetting, actually, a lot of people in Italy, because it is a very hard process to get Italian citizenship. Even if you have Italian blood in your family, it's still not easy as what Milei has gone through. And so a lot of people are upset with the fact that Meloni just gave Milei Italian citizenship. Milei gave Meloni, when Meloni was visiting Milei in Argentina, Milei gave her an action figure chainsaw of himself. And that's what he gave Meloni, and Meloni gives him Italian citizenship. I don't think that's quite a fair trade, but hey, whatever. So yeah, Meloni is under a bit of fire for handing out the citizenship to Milei so easily, while other people have to go through a much more difficult process to get their citizenship in Italy. But Politico has an article on Trump and Meloni, and Politico's article has the title, "Trump Gushes Over Meloni. She's a fantastic leader and person." The U.S. president-elect praises the Italian prime minister, saying he'll work with her when he returns to the White House. Politico named Meloni the most powerful person in Europe. Man, a lot of hype around Meloni all of a sudden. What's going on? What do you think is going on here? A lot of hype surrounding Meloni, especially from Politico. I wonder what they're cooking up. Is Meloni going to get close to Trump and then betray Trump? Is that what they're cooking up? I don't know. I don't trust Meloni. If I was Trump, I would not trust Giorgia Meloni. But according to Politico, Trump thinks Meloni's awesome, and Meloni said the same thing about Trump. I believe Maloney betrayed Orban, right? Yeah. Orban took Maloney under his wing, and then Maloney turned on Orban. And I believe now they're trying to patch things up. But yeah, be very, very careful, Trump. Very careful with Giorgia Maloney. Do I have any other clown worlds? Oh, speaking of Trump, he posted on Truth Social about the Iranian mothership drones, which the Pentagon says are not Iranian drones. But they don't say what these drones are. No one says, what are these drones? What are these drones? You don't know. United States government, Biden White House, you have no idea what these drones are? Whose drones are these? They have no idea. At least they're not saying. I don't want to say they have no idea. They're just not saying. So Trump posted on Truth Social that the drones should be shot down. That's what he said. Shoot them down. And then he said, I can't believe that the Biden White House has no idea what these drones are doing right off the coast of New Jersey. That's what Trump said. He's right. He's right. You're telling me you don't know what these drones are doing? Shoot them down. Unless, of course, they're the U.S. government drones. And this is all just about, a lot of people arguing, unless this is all just about pushing out some propaganda about Iran like they did with the Chinese balloons, right? To stir up some controversy in and around Iran. So the U.S. government puts these drones up in the air and then they float a story about Iranian drones, so that they can get those bad Iranian feelings kind of bubbling up amongst the U.S. population in anticipation of some sort of a conflict with Iran. Which we know from the Times of Israel reporting from yesterday that Netanyahu is absolutely considering some sort of an airstrike into Iran, as is the Trump White House as well. The incoming Trump White House is also looking at airstrikes into Iran. So anyway, that's what this drone thing is about, in my opinion. Propaganda. It's just about manufacturing consent and stirring up some emotions and propaganda. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like the jacket I'm wearing today in this video. Like this channel. Share this video, share this channel, subscribe to this channel, help me get to 214,000 subscribers on YouTube. Can I get there? Can I get to 215,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year? I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but with your help, maybe I can accomplish that goal. Anyway, take care, everyone.